New York policies on bail and congressional lines both drawing the attention of the Trump administration. We'll hear from a state minority leadership on his response to these policies. Hello, welcome to Empire State Weekly. I'm John Gray.
And I'm Jamie DeLine. Earlier this week, President Donald Trump signing an executive order aimed at penalizing states that use so-called cashless bail policies.
This move is part of the latest back and forth between the Trump administration and New York. Now, the term cashless bail is a bit of an actual misnomer for New York's bail reform policies that were passed in 2019. Reforms limit the crimes that are eligible for bail with the goal of keeping people out of extended stays behind bars while they're waiting for their trial.
These bail reforms have been controversial since they were implemented and have been tweaked several times. The president's executive order would see federal aid pulled for jurisdictions that eliminated bail for crimes that pose a threat to the public safety.
Now, all this comes as the governor's push to change the congressional district map slows down, as she acknowledges that the change cannot be brought about quickly. The governor proposed a state constitutional amendment to allow New York to change district lines if another state does it first. The amendments must first be voted on, though, and the earliest that could impact elections would be in 2028.
Joining us now to give additional insight and reaction to all of this is Assemblyman Will Barclay. He's the Republican representing the 120th District and is the minority leader in the Assembly. Thank you so much for being on, Leader.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
So first and foremost, let's talk about the president's executive order when it comes to cashless bail. For people that don't know, what is cashless bail?
Well, that's something we call the bail reform here in New York, and it essentially doesn't allow a judge to set cash bail. In New York, for instance, 53% of all those people that have charged with felonies have been released from jail, and they have to come back to trial. And so it's caused a lot of increase in crime, unfortunately, here in New York.
But cash bail hasn't been totally eliminated here in the state, correct?
Yeah, so some various felonies, like real serious felonies like murder, you can still use cash bail. So usually those people stay in prison pending their trial. Interestingly, though, out of those 53% that are released that have been charged with felonies, something like 26% have recidivized and committed crimes pending their trial dates. So there's really strong statistics that show that bail reform, and thankfully the president's doing it by executive order. We'll see where that goes. But we know here all too well here in New York that with the spike we've had in crime, a lot is related to some of the criminal justice so-called reforms that the Democrats have passed, and certainly bail reform is a big part of that.
Do you think that the president's executive order will impact New York State?
Well, just like anything, I think it'll probably be challenged in court. So we'll see what the courts say if he can overturn cashless bail in New York. A lot of other states have done it. Interestingly, in other states with cashless bail, they have allowed judges discretion. So the judges, if it looks like the defendant is a danger to the community or whatever, the judge can impose cash bail. Unfortunately, in New York, that doesn't give discretions of judges here. And again, we're seeing as a result of that, we're seeing a spike in crime and recidivism in crime.
Weren't there some rollbacks recently that aimed at giving judges more discretion?
A few rollbacks, yeah, we did it, I think, in last year's budget, but that didn't really go far enough. It was kind of just cutting around the edges. And one of the problems we've had with any of these criminal justice reforms, whether it's raise the age, parole reform, or bail, so-called bail reform, is the fact they never talk with those people that are on the front lines, people like the district attorneys or police that see crime happening right there, and they're the ones we should be getting input from. But unfortunately, or even the judges for that matter. In fact, I was really disappointed to hear the governor say that the judges don't know how to use bail reform in their ministry. I think we can trust the judges know the law very well in New York. The problem is the laws that we passed really handcuff judges to be able to do what they need to do to keep those dangerous criminals behind bars.
Now, I know you and your Republican colleagues have been critical of bail reform. What exactly would you like to see change?
Well, we're not against some reform, and we're not against, some bail reform, particularly how it affects on lower level crimes. But the problem was really you can't use bail only on the most serious crimes. And again, as a result, we're seeing recidivism. So we'd like to expand those types of crimes that are bail eligible. For instance, some gun crimes really shouldn't be letting these people back out on the street because ultimately they could be very violent criminals. And so there's a lot of different crimes that we think we should be expanded and should be bail eligible.
Now, switching gears a little bit to redistricting, what are your thoughts on mid-decade redistricting? Is that something that you think states should be allowed to do?
Well, every state's a little different on redistricting. Obviously, this question comes from the proposal in Texas where they're looking to do redistricting. And I can't really speak or defend what they're doing in Texas. What I can say, though, in New York, I find some of my colleagues across the aisle, yelling that this is the end of democracy and what a bit hypocritical. I mean, we just finished up redistricting here in 2024, so it's almost mid-decade in New York State. And, essentially it was a gerrymandering process. Even the Democratic appointed Court of Appeals threw out some of the maps that the Dem majorities drew here in New York. So the idea that somehow gerrymandering only happens in other states or in Texas and somehow New York's got to combat it, I think is, high level hypocrisy. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot of gerrymandering in New York in my time in politics.
Do you think that there should be a constitutional amendment to allow New York to have this mid-decade redistricting, or is that something that you think should just be left alone?
Well, I think not just my opinion. I think yes, any New Yorker, whether we should change the Constitution to get rid of the Independent Redistricting Commission. I'll stress Independent Redistricting Commission. I think anyone would say we should keep that IRC. In fact, maybe take it farther and try to get politics out of reapportionment. And so the governor's trying to put that as a proposal, I guess, to somehow fight it back against Texas or other states that may be redistricting. I think she's got a tall order to do that. I don't think it's just me, but I think all New Yorkers would probably be hesitant to change our Constitution. And even if they were inclined to do that, that's not going to happen. It takes 2 legislative sessions, and then it's got to go to a vote for all New Yorkers. Even if somehow that passed, it would be many years before that would actually be implemented or to get rid of the Independent Redistricting Commission.
Now, my final question for you is, do you think that this is a proposal that will be brought up in the next legislative session, which starts in January?
Very possibly. I don't know who's going to carry that, though, because I think it's other than the governor talking about it, the actual reality of implementing that, as I said, is very unlikely. And I don't think New Yorkers, they have to vote on it. I very much doubt New Yorkers want to vote on it, but maybe it'll come up. Yeah, if anybody wants to bring it up, we'll certainly point out the infirmities with such an idea. And again, I strongly believe that you should try to take as best we can, and we've tried to do that in New York, to take politics out of the reapportionment. That's why we set up the Independent Redistricting Commission. And if anything, we ought to strengthen that commission, not weaken it or take it away.
We'll have to see what happens. Leader Barkley, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Good talking to you as always.
As school districts get ready to welcome back students for the fall, they continue to face a shortage of teachers. When we return, hear from the School Boards Association on the challenges districts face and the steps they can take to keep their teachers.
Welcome back to Empire State Weekly. As students get ready to head back to school, education advocates say a shortage of teachers is continuing to impact multiple districts.
The teacher shortage impacting several subjects, including health, science, English language arts, and special education.
Now, to address this issue of the shortage, the School Boards Association recommending districts take action at the local level to improve teacher retention. They recommend developing relationships with local community colleges to strengthen the pipeline to careers for the recent graduates. They also suggest reevaluating compensation for teachers.
This all coming as schools face the challenge of implementing the governor's bell-to-bell cell phone ban. At the start of the month, districts face the deadline to submit their plan for how to keep cell phones out of the hands of students. Some districts reportedly missed that deadline. The Education Department must review the plans before classes start in the fall.
Joining me now to give additional insight on the ongoing teacher shortage, among other things, Bob Schneider, the Executive Director of the New York State School Boards Association. Bob, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, John.
Looking around, looking at some of the research out there, some of the articles, I know NYSET was saying 180,000 teachers are going to be needed in the next decade. Boy, that seems like a big number. Is there really an issue here?
Right now, there is an issue in certain topics and certain areas of the state. We just released a research paper on how you can recruit and retain teachers because we're seeing shortages in like special education, science, English language learning, that type of thing. Those topics, we need teachers there, and again, in certain areas. So we came up with solutions, reasonable solutions or manageable solutions for school districts to try to fill that pipeline and also recruit teachers. Two of the solutions involve a residency program or or apprenticeship program. I was just at an event earlier in the week with state agencies, New York Teach, State Education Department, Department of Labor. They've created a very impressive apprenticeship program to try to draw people from different industries into the teaching profession where they have supports from the local school district. They'll have a teacher helping them out to learn how to manage a classroom, do the work, the lesson plan and the curriculum over a long time. And there are financial supports in place to help them become teachers in a long time period. A lot of us think about it in the old days or right now, there's student teaching, which is maybe a 12-week session for a graduate student or an undergraduate student to get in the classroom. It's a short timeline. With an apprenticeship program and a residency program where you have graduate students that will get into the classroom for a longer time period to get them more comfortable, that might give us a better chance of retaining those teachers. And then the recruitment would be on the apprenticeship side.
And when people think about people student teaching, you think about them just getting credits for college but not getting paid. Are some of these programs you're talking about where they might get some pay as well in the apprenticeship, or is it all just part of learning?
Well, the apprenticeship, that's a good point, John. They have opportunities with certain funding areas. There's BOCES can do some funding for residents and apprenticeships. You have grants. There are other financial aid supports. The apprenticeship would be paid, but obviously they have to get their certification. And that's where the financial supports come in. And we need to get that word out to more people who are thinking about changing their career and going into the noble profession of teaching. So there are financial supports and also there's supports to get them comfortable so we have a better chance of retaining them. And also with the residencies, with the graduate students, yes, there are certain financial supports that they can avail themselves of through certain agencies.
The shortage itself, is it just that we have the whole, I'm on the fringe of that boomer generation, I'm 62, but if I were a teacher, I would be basically getting my retirement age. Are we seeing a lot of great teachers they're in their 60s and they're retiring now, or late 50s and they've done 30 years of it and they're ready to be done? Or is it also that we don't have enough coming into the pipeline to feed this?
It's a combination, John. The pipeline for graduate students, it's down, and we have to address that. We have to start doing grow your own programs. We have to start looking at students in the K-12 system that have skill sets or attributes to become a teacher. We have to encourage the profession. Now, you have these teachers that are retiring, but that apprenticeship program, they can come back from retirement and they can do a 2-year apprenticeship, helping that new teacher coming from a different industry get into the classroom. But we have to look at that. The other issue, John, is retention. We see that teachers within the first 5 years, 20% of them, they do not stay in the profession. They move on. So we have to be careful as far as making sure those teachers in the first 5 years are comfortable in the school district. We're addressing their concerns and trying to keep them and retain them, making them feel like they're part of an important school district, an important mission.
I'll ask this question, and every teacher out there who might be watching or who was a teacher will appreciate this question. Is part of it pay? I know everybody wants to make more money no matter what they do for a living, but are these jobs paying enough where, kids aren't dumb. When they're 17, 18, they start looking at career choices. Sure. If it looks like a hard job and the pay is not quite what they think, maybe they go in a different direction. Is that part of the issue? That's
part of it. I mean, I have a few family members that are influencers making a lot of money. I wish I could do that. But anyway, you have across the country, you have a very competitive salary in New York State for teachers. But when you line it up to other industries with 4-year graduates, in other careers, the teachers on average are lagging about $20,000. So if pay is an issue in a specific school district, you have to work with the school board and the budget constraints, the collective bargaining agreements, and you might want to look at the pay and see if you need to see if you can put more budgeted money towards teacher pay. But there's a lot more than pay. It is a noble profession, as I said, and there's a lot of important things that a teacher accomplishes in their career, especially molding our future contributors in society. So I think it's more of a package thing versus just pay.
And while, of course, we all have teachers we look back on. There's always that one teacher could change your life. Less than a minute, but you talk about retention. It's a harder job than people give it credit for, isn't it? I hate seeing on social media where people throw rocks at teachers, say, oh, you got summers off, you grade a couple papers, you're home at 4 o'clock. It's not quite what teaching is it?
It's not the case, John. I come from a family of teachers. I get into the classroom to volunteer. Think about what teachers have to deal with now. What just happened with the school shooting? We've got to keep our students safe in schools. We have to make sure they're fed. We have to make sure we're focusing on their mental health positivity, if you will. We have all these additional things we have to do. So it is not an easy job. Again, it's a noble profession, and it's a very important profession.
All right, I wanted to get into cell phones, but we're out of time. Hopefully the cell phone bell-to-bell thing's going well. Maybe we'll have you back here, Bob. We'll talk about that another day.
Anytime.
Thanks for coming on. Well, following a deadly tour bus crash, New York lawmakers are renewing the push for stricter bus safety laws. What changes could be on the way to help make our roads safer? Following a tragic bus crash last week that killed 5 people and left dozens injured, a state lawmaker is now renewing his call for stricter safety measures on commercial buses.
I spoke with that lawmaker on how his bill would prevent future tragedies. When Assemblyman Scott Gray returns to Albany in January, he wants to make sure legislation requiring passengers to wear seatbelts on commercial buses becomes law.
So it has the backing of the NTSB. When we drafted them.
Assemblyman Scott Gray says his bus bill has requirements similar to what's already being done on airplanes, pre-trip safety instructions and seatbelt checks.
What do the windows do? How do they function? Where are the seat belts and what's your proper uses?
This legislation was created in response to a bus and truck crash that killed 6 people in Louisville, New York back in 2023. That same year, a bus carrying band students also crashed in Orange County, killing 2 adults. 2
years later, 2025, we have the Pembroke accident in Western New York. Same thing. So the analysis by the NTSB hasn't returned yet, but they are early indications that lack of seatbelt use was attributed to the 5 fatalities.
A preliminary NTSB report on the Pembroke crash is expected to be published in about 30 days. The Assemblyman also has another bill that would require en route safety inspections for motor coaches with 16 passengers or more. The inspections would take place every 30 days at designated rest stops on the highway.
This would look at operational compliance with, seat belts, steering, it would be tires, it would be, emergency exits, make sure that they're functioning, and also make sure that the driver is qualified.
Both pieces of legislation have yet to have state Senate sponsors. In Albany, I'm Jamie DeLine.
In the wake of a number of animal abuse cases in the capital region and around the state, lawmakers calling for new regulations to control what they call an increasing epidemic. The call for new regulations coming as new statewide regs surrounding animal shelters go into effect on December the 15th. These new regulations are under the Companion Animal Care Standards Act, and that will require animal shelter facilities to rework their policies around capacity limits, temperature controls, veterinary care, and more. Some shelters are concerned, though, that they are not ready to fully comply with these tough new regulations. With many smaller operations concerned, they won't be able to cover the cost of the new rules. Libby Post, the executive director of the State Animal Protection Federation, says that there will be assistance to those who need help adjusting to the new rules.
We also have established in the budget, the Federation got established in the budget, in the 2018 budget, the Companion Animal Capital Fund, which, including the money that's coming out in the RFP this fall, has invested close to $50 million in capital projects at shelters and rescues across the state. So it's not like we said, oh, you have to do this, but we're not going to help you. You have to do this. There's going to be capital projects that need to be done, but we've made money available for you to be able to apply for.
Shelters who apply to get the money could be eligible to get up to $500,000 as long as they match 10% of the costs. Stick around, back with a look at the week ahead in just a bit.
If you have a comment or story idea, let us know. You can email us at newsandnews10.com. You can also reach out on X at WTEN.
Finally, in Empire State Weekly, we are keeping an eye on the push to legalize pepper spray, also known as mace, in New York State. As of right now, pepper spray can only be sold by authorized dealers and pharmacists, but a new bill in the Senate would change that.
The bill, introduced by State Senator Jessica Scarsella Stanton, would remove restrictions on which businesses can still sell pepper spray. The senator says she was inspired to change the law due to the rise in the threat of violence against women.
We're going to be sure to keep an eye on that legislation and bring you the latest analysis. For now, from all of us here at Empire State Weekly, I'm John Gray.
And I'm Jamie DeLine. We'll see you here next week.
Don't you forget, you can watch this show all over New York State. Here's the full schedule of Empire State Weekly on 10 television stations across the great state of New York.